Today we are going to be focusing on countable, uncountable, and partitive nouns. So to be able to do that, we need a quick recap. What is a noun? And when we are speaking about nouns, we are speaking about a word class that covers objects. And they, like we've mentioned in previous masterclasses, it might be the name of a person. So it could be a proper noun. It might be a common noun, such as a pen. It could be a collective noun, so it could be a group of objects. The previous masterclass, we focused on concrete and abstract nouns, where we looked at things that you use your senses to identify and those that can't be identified with the senses. And today, we're going to look at that final group, the countable, the uncountable, and the partitives. And when we look at nouns, although there are many groups, they are likely to fit into several different groups. And countable and uncountable is one of those groups. All nouns, you can either count them or they are uncountable. So let's begin, first of all, by looking at what we mean by a countable noun and what we mean by an uncountable noun. So first of all, when we speak about countable nouns, we are speaking about nouns that we can count using numbers. And so I can have one pen, two pens, three pens. I could have one book, two books, three books. And when we use these countable nouns, they have a singular form. So let's go back to the pen. If I have one pen, it is singular, so I would say a pen, okay? If it is plural, I would use the number, but I wouldn't say three pen, I would say three pens. So when you are using the plural form, make sure that you are putting the correct ending on the plural, but also be aware of those that are not following the rules. So you would have one child, but four children. Okay, so that doesn't follow the ending of putting S, ES, or IES on the end of it. So countable nouns, you can use numbers to count them. Okay. Uncountable nouns, they are the nouns that we cannot use numbers before them. So if we are speaking about uncountable nouns, let's go back to what we were speaking about last time with the abstract nouns. Many of those are uncountable because if you speak about joy, joy is an abstract idea. You don't have one joy, two joys, three joys, because it is an abstract idea. It is just joy, okay? As well as the abstract ideas, we also use the uncountable for those items where you've got things, they're made up of little bits. So things like cereal, where it's made up of tiny little grains, you wouldn't say one, two, three of it. You would just say some cereal. That also applies to things such as liquids, powders, and gases. And I'm kind of thinking of going to the seaside, you've got sand. The grains of sand are so tiny, you can't count every little grain of sand. So that would be uncountable. And let's come to our sheet. So I've got my list on the screen, and again, I am going to use my coloured highlighters. So I'm going to have red for countable, and I will have blue for uncountable. So let's start at the top and work our way across. So milk. I can't count it. It is a liquid, so it is uncountable. A chair, I could have one chair, two chairs, three chairs. I can physically count them, so that is a countable noun. Potato. I'm sure at nursery school you'll have sung one potato, two potato, three potato, four. You're counting them, so they are countable nouns. Now, think about the grass outside and think about the fact that there are so many blades of grass. It's in tiny little bits. So you can't count every single blade of grass. So it is an uncountable noun. And today we are speaking in British English rather than American English. And that is really important for the next one, money, because you can talk about the amount of money that you have, as in, I've got so many pounds and so many pence. That would be an amount of money. But you don't say, I've got one money, I've got two money. So it is uncountable. Now, that might be different if you are learning American English or Australian English, but in British English, money is uncountable. Okay, so tissue. Well, I have a box of tissues and I can count them as I pour them out the box. So I've got one tissue, two tissues, three tissues. So that is a countable noun. The next one I often hear incorrectly when I visit schools because they give out bread at lunch times and they say, would you like one bread or two breads? And that's not correct because you can't count the bread itself. You might say, could I have one slice of bread? But you can't count bread. So it is an uncountable noun, okay? Monkey. If you've been to the zoo, you've seen the monkeys. I'm sure that you're able to say there's one monkey, two monkeys, three monkeys. So yes, that is countable. When we are speaking about wood in British English, you can't count it. Okay, so that is an uncountable noun there. And I've used this example earlier, books. I have plenty of them and I can count. I've got one book, two books, three books. So I can use a number to count them. So books are countable. And again, this is another one that may be different if you're learning other versions of English. But in British English, you don't say, would you like one meat? Would you like two meats? You just say, would you like some meat? And you can't count it, okay? So it is uncountable. The next one, a key. So you've got one key, two keys, three keys. So you can count the number of keys that are on your key ring. So that is a countable noun. The next one, an abstract noun. So love, a bit like joy, it's an abstract noun, so you can't count it. So you can't say one love, two loves, because it is an abstract idea. So that is uncountable. Oh, biscuits. So yes, you can count them. You could have one biscuit, two biscuits, three biscuits. So that is a countable noun. And the final one, water. And again, water is a liquid, so it is uncountable because you cannot count liquid. Okay, so that is an uncountable noun. Now, countable and uncountable nouns can be particularly confusing because when we use them, it will often depend on the situation. So some nouns, they can be countable and uncountable, depending on how you are using it. So I might talk about having chickens in the garden, and I could have a number of chickens. So I've got 4 chickens, I've got 6 chickens in the garden. But if you are asking someone about would you like some chicken for dinner, you're not using the number, so it makes it uncountable there. And same as hare. If you're talking about you've found a hare in your soup or you've found 2 hares in your soup, that is countable because you're speaking about the individual strands of hair. If you're talking about someone that has a certain color of hair, it is uncountable because you cannot count every single strand of hair that they have. Okay. And the final one, if we are talking about pizza, so I ordered 3 pizzas for tea. 3 is the quantity of the pizza. But if I say to someone, would you like some pizza? It has become uncountable. You could turn it into countable again by saying, would you like 2 slices of pizza? And that brings us to the next part of this session. We're going to look at how do you turn these uncountable nouns, how do you turn them into a countable noun? And what you need to do is you need to add another noun to them. And that other noun that we add is a partitive noun. And the partitive noun tells us the piece or the part of the object. So if I'm speaking about bread, I go to the shop and I buy some bread, I would buy it in a loaf. Now, if I'm making sandwiches with that bread, I wouldn't use the whole loaf of it. I would use a slice of it. And if I am doing some cooking and I need an even smaller piece of it, you would use a crumb of bread. So the partitive nouns used for bread would be a slice, a loaf, or a crumb, depending on the amount that you need. Now, if I'm speaking about drinks, Pepsi, lemonade, any type of drink, there are different ways that you could buy this or you could order it. So I would, if I go to the shop, I could buy Pepsi or lemonade, I could buy it in a bottle. If I don't want a massive big bottle and I only want a little bit of it, I could buy it in a can. So you can get it in a bottle, you can buy it in a can. If you are out in a restaurant, you would probably ask for a glass of Pepsi or a glass of lemonade or a glass of water. The other partitive noun that you could use if you're speaking about a liquid is a drop, but that would indicate a very, very small amount of that liquid. So it's quite unusual to use it with fizzy drinks. It's more with water that you would tend to use the drop part. Okay. And the final one that we're going to look at today, the rice. And if I go out and I buy rice, I would tend to buy it in a packet. Now, there is another way of buying rice. If you need an incredibly large amount, you can also buy it in a sack, but that would be if you were feeding a lot of people, you would have a sack of rice. If we are thinking about how you would eat it, you would probably say, please, could I have a bowl of rice or a plate of rice? So you could talk about how it is being served. And the final one, that it's unlikely that you're only going to ask for one grain, but if you were wanting to turn it into a countable noun and you wanted to count every tiny little piece of rice, you would say a grain of rice, but it's unusual that you would only ask for 2 or 3 grains because that wouldn't be very much at all. Okay, so I hope that you have found what we've been looking at today helpful. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Thank you. Bye.